Content warning. This video contains depictions of violence and discussions of sexual assault. Caution is advised.
Oh, come in, Christopher Robin.
Now, Pooh, being a bear of very little brain, decided to invite the new sound in.
Hello out there. Oh, I hope nobody answers.
Oh, good morning, Winnie-the-Pooh.
Oh, bother.
What's up, extraordinary people? I'm Daniel, and today we're going to talk about a real movie that exists. So Winnie-the-Pooh, or at least the first Winnie-the-Pooh book by A.A. Milne, is in the public domain, so anyone can make any adaptation of Winnie-the-Pooh that they want. And apparently, some people decided that the best way to capitalize on this was to create a Winnie-the-Pooh horror movie. Now, I'm a huge fan of Winnie-the-Pooh. Winnie-the-Pooh is probably my favorite fictional character of all time. I've loved him my entire life since before I can remember up until now. I have way more Winnie-the-Pooh merchandise than I care to mention. So obviously, when I heard about this movie, I knew I had to see it for myself. The movie is called Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey, and I watched it. I went to a theater, I sat my butt down in a seat, and I watched a movie called Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey. So normally for this type of video review, I'd give you a brief synopsis of the movie, and then I'd tell you what I liked about it, then I'd tell you what I didn't like about it, and then finally I would sum up my thoughts by giving the movie a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. But this movie is special, so I'm going to do something I've never done on this channel before. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey a 1. I'm just getting that out of the way right now because this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Shocker, right? The Winnie-the-Pooh horror movie is bad? Who would have thought? Well, it's actually a lot worse than you might think. It fails on every single level. The acting is atrocious. The production values are garbage. Everything about this movie is just god-awful. Oh, and full spoiler warning going forward because I will be spoiling major elements of this movie. As if any of you even care. I mean, yeah, I'm going to spoil Winnie-the-Pooh Blood and Honey. Oh no.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So the plot of this movie is that Christopher Robin grows up and abandons Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends. And because they apparently need Christopher Robin to feed them, they face starvation and they have to kill and eat Eeyore to survive.
On the brink of starvation, Pooh decided that in order to survive, the group must consume one of their dearest friends. And thus, Eeyore was no more.
They then basically go feral and go on a rampage of carnage and destruction and basically become generic movie monsters.
We used to be friends. Why are you doing this, please? I would have never left, I swear, I swear.
So, there is no creativity in this movie whatsoever. It is literally just a generic slasher movie with Winnie-the-Pooh in the title and two monsters who vaguely resemble a bear and a pig. That's all this movie is.
I'll have a
Slasher movie.
How original.
and with
Winnie-the-Pooh in the title.
Daring today, aren't we?
But it's actually a lot worse than it sounds on the surface, because this movie doesn't even follow its own logic, and it doesn't do anything creative or fun with its premise. So first, this movie isn't even actually a Winnie-the-Pooh horror movie, because it doesn't have anything to do with Winnie-the-Pooh. You know what would have been a really stupid and funny idea? A movie about Winnie-the-Pooh killing people. But this isn't that movie. This is basically a completely different character who happens to have the same name. So what do I mean by that? Well, Winnie-the-Pooh is a stuffed animal and a bear of very little brain. He has a personality and mannerisms, right? He's a character. This character, pun intended, bears no resemblance to Winnie-the-Pooh. Pooh and Piglet in this movie are not stuffed animals. They're big burly men with bad Spirit Halloween masks. They have no personality and nothing to suggest even remotely being Pooh or Piglet. I mean, look at that. That is not Piglet. You are never going to convince me of that.
Hang up. Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give me. Okay.
They're the same picture.
Come on. If this movie wants to sell us that this is Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet killing people, they need to put in at least a little bit of effort into making them feel like Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet killing people. It has to give us characters that feel like Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet on some level. But it just doesn't even try to do that. And because these characters are not Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet killing people, they're just random men wearing bad Spirit Halloween masks, this movie doesn't even live up to its premise. Like, it doesn't even give us Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet killing people. It just kind of says it's doing that to sell the idea, and then the movie just wants to coast off of that idea without putting in any effort. You know, they could have done something creative with these characters. They could have had puppets, or animation, you know, or something. Just something with more effort than these bad Spirit Halloween masks.
Look, Piglet. There's something in that tree over there.
Is it one of the big fiercer animals?
Yes. It's a jaguar.
What did jaguars do, Pooh?
Well, jaguars always call hello, and when you look up, they drop on you.
And what's interesting is, like, the movie is actually kind of upfront with the fact that these aren't really the characters that we know. The movie establishes in the opening scene that Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends aren't really stuffed animals, but they're actually half human, half animal hybrid monsters that were always dangerous.
Crossbreeds, who some would describe as abominations. With the naivety of youth, Christopher ignored the dangers and befriended them all.
But then it tries to backtrack that and tell us, well, actually, Christopher Robin just drove them to become animalistic and dangerous because he abandoned them, even though they were actually already dangerous in the first place.
The trauma of this act warped the minds of the group. They became feral and developed a hatred to all things human, and in particular, Christopher Robin for abandoning them.
Like, the movie just cannot make up its mind on what it wants these characters to actually be. Like, were they monsters in the first place, or did Christopher Robin turn them into monsters? The movie just can't decide, and it's just this inherent contradiction that the movie never resolves. And on that note, this movie is absolutely riddled with logical contradictions. They did not try to make anything in this movie even remotely coherent. Like, it just contradicts itself constantly. So the central plot point of this movie, like I just mentioned, is Christopher Robin abandons Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends, causing them to eat Eeyore, starve, become feral, hate everything about humans, and vow to never speak again.
A pact was made. They renounced their humanity and returned to their animalistic roots, swearing never to talk again.
Except, the movie contradicts all of that on multiple fronts. So we're told that Winnie-the-Pooh and his friends starve without Christopher Robin, but we're also told that they were apparently living in the woods for years just fine without him. And we also see Pooh eating honey throughout the movie multiple times in what's probably the movie's only attempt to make Pooh actually feel like Pooh. So apparently he was fine without Christopher Robin. Like, which is it? Were they starving without Christopher Robin, or were they doing just fine? Oh, and the movie also tells us that they hate everything human because of how Christopher Robin abandoned them, except for the fact that they're wearing full suits of clothes throughout the entire movie that they didn't have in the opening scene. So apparently after deciding to go feral and be fully animalistic, they stop by the mall to buy these full outfits that they wear. Pooh has this flannel shirt and overalls and boots, and Piglet is wearing like a biker jacket. Like, they don't even attempt to explain anything in this movie or try to make any of it make sense. Oh, and the movie also tells us that they take this vow of silence and vow never to speak again after Christopher Robin abandons them, but the movie contradicts that too. See, there's this character in the movie they've been torturing, and then they kind of leave her all tied up, and these other characters come by and see her all wounded and stuff, and she's like, they call themselves Pooh and Piglet, and they speak in broken English. It's like, I thought you said they never spoke, but apparently now they do? Like, nothing in this movie is consistent at all. And honestly, I wouldn't even care about that too much if the movie didn't take itself so seriously. Like, everything in this movie is played dead serious with no hint of irony, goofiness, or anything fun. It's just a generic slasher movie played totally straight. Oh, and the violence in this movie is totally gratuitous and needlessly exploitative. So the main plot of this movie, after the whole Christopher Robin abandoning them thing, is about this group of girls who go to stay at a cabin in the woods because this movie is a generic slasher movie and it has no original ideas. And there's this scene where one of the girls is talking to the other girls and describing how she was stalked and sexually assaulted. You know, so she can be re-traumatized by Winnie-the-Pooh later in the movie. If that wasn't offensive enough, there's another scene where Pooh attacks this other girl by ripping her shirt off and exposing her breasts before shoving her head first into a wood chipper, because that's definitely something I wanted to see in a movie. You know, Winnie-the-Pooh sexually assaulting people. And on top of that, every death in this movie is just a boring, generic slasher movie death. They didn't even try to do anything creative with how Winnie-the-Pooh kills people. They just go for as much gore and blood as possible, but no creativity, no fun, goofiness, irony, really anything to be interesting at all. Like, all these filmmakers could think to do with the premise of Winnie-the-Pooh killing people was just kind of throw as much blood and gore and exploitation at the screen as possible. That's all they could think to do with this premise. And if that wasn't bad enough, there isn't even any attempt at any kind of story or character development or really anything. This movie wants you to think it's this edgy, shocking, transgressive movie, but it's not. It is just a generic slasher movie.
Eeyore, when I say now, Pooh will drop the stone. Are you ready? Ready. 1, 2, now.
Oh dear, perhaps it wasn't such a very good idea after all.
But seeing through this movie and being totally bored out of my skull got me thinking about how this premise could have been done better. So if I were making this movie, here's what I would have done. First of all, I would have gone absolutely balls to the walls, stupid and outrageous, and just as crazy as possible. Because why not? The premise is totally stupid, so why wouldn't you follow through with that with an absolutely stupid movie? I would have Pooh and Piglet be puppets, so they actually feel like the characters, and it would just be a little more interesting than seeing two people in masks. And I would have them talk, so they could actually feel like the characters again, and so we could maybe utilize some lines from the book in really ironic or stupid ways. And most importantly, I would have them kill people in ways that feel like ways Winnie-the-Pooh and Piglet would actually kill people if they actually were serial killers, which sounds totally stupid, but that's actually what I'm going for here. So here's two ways I came up with. The first one we'll call the Little Black Rain Cloud. Pooh and Piglet roll someone in mud, tie a balloon to them, and float them up into the honey tree to be stung to death by bees.
What is that? What is that? What is that? Oh, no, not the bees! Not the bees!
Or here's another one. We'll call this the Pooh Sticks method. So Pooh and Piglet sharpen some Pooh Sticks and stick them into the river pointing up, and then they go on the Pooh Sticks bridge and throw their victim off the bridge to be impaled on the Pooh Sticks. You know, you get the idea, I hope. Just do something totally stupid and creative that still somehow utilizes the lore of Winnie-the-Pooh, so it doesn't just feel like a generic slasher movie. You know, if you're going to have the premise of your movie be Winnie-the-Pooh killing people, then you better have the conviction to actually follow through with that in a funny and stupid way. And finally, the last thing I would do is I would have some kind of narrative theme or through line just to make the story more coherent. You know, some character development of some kind. So like a really simple one would be just a theme about the dangers of forgetting what it was like to be a child. You know, the dangers of getting so absorbed in adult life that you forget what's really important. You know, like the live-action Christopher Robin movie, but a horror angle on that.
Did you let me go?
I suppose I did.
That one's really simple and almost writes itself, and is pretty much the most logical one you could do with this premise. So yeah, that movie that I would have made might have been fun, or at least so stupid it's fun, but this movie we actually got is not like that at all. It is totally garbage, and not in a fun way, just in a completely bore you out of your skull way. It's not fun. It's not edgy. It is just, as I've said many times at this point, a generic slasher movie with terrible acting, terrible directing, and terrible pretty much everything. I would not recommend anyone watch this movie. Alright guys, if you have also sat through this horrendous movie, let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, remember that you're extraordinary. I love all of you so much. Bye.